We are live. So, welcome everybody to Speaker Success Training. This month is an exciting one because we're getting ready to kick off a profitable 2024. This is the time to start planning. This is the time to start getting dates on the calendar. And what's awesome about today is we're going to find some new and uh, maybe some easier ways in order to get ourselves out there. We're talking about selling more books. We're talking about getting more speaking. So you're in the right place if you want to accomplish all of that. So I'm going to kick off by introducing our wonderful trainer today. Her name is Charmaine Hammond. If you haven't already had the privilege of having been in a training with her before, this is a woman you definitely want to get to know. She is a highly sought after business keynote and workshop speaker, author, and educator who teaches and advocates the importance of developing trust and healthy relationships, effectively navigating conflict resolution, and enhancing collaboration in the workplace. And also among our peers, and we just love having Charmaine, and she guides us on all our publishing. She has presented to more than 500,000 people worldwide, and just as many through virtual conferences and trainings. She has a master's degree in conflict management and analysis, and is the best-selling author of 5 books and featured in 11 others. So just recently, last year, or well, in the progress, she launched her, she's the executive producer of the award-winning animated film Back Home Again. And so we are going to be we're providing the link in Women Speakers Association here, so you'll all get a chance to watch it. It's super fun, and goes towards a worthwhile cause with mental health. So we are going to jump in. I'm going to hand it all over to Charmaine. Feel free. Some housekeeping here is if you want to ask questions, this is going to be highly interactive. So there's a Q&A button. You all know the Q&A chat button at the bottom. You can put questions in there to make sure that we don't miss them, or interact in the chat, and we'll do our very, very best to keep up with the chat. So thanks, Charmaine. Take it away.
Thank you. And Gail, you know that as I'm explaining content and going through the slides, if you're seeing comments or questions in the chat that I haven't clued into yet, jump on in. So I
All
am
right.
totally happy to do that. And you had a
Thank you.
poll. I think we had a poll. Do we want to start with the poll before I get
Oh,
into my
sure.
content?
Okay.
That'd be fun.
Okay. So I just hit
And welcome
launch.
everybody.
Don't
I
know how.
believe so. Yeah.
All right.
Let's give her a
Okay, let's
whirl.
try it.
Oh, I see it on my screen. All right. So we've got a quick poll here. Number one question is, are you wanting to book more speaking in 2024 or sell more books? And so you can click on the choice of sell more books, get more speaking, or both. And I'm just going to give a minute
Oh,
or so
wow.
to, yeah, wow. And then the second question is, do you have a book? So the choice is where you've got one in progress or more than one in progress. You're in a collaborative book, or no, but you want to be. So I'm just going to look at the responses here. All right. So for the first question that was all around for 2024, do you want to sell more books or get more speaking or both? What we're seeing here is 41% of you are saying that you want to get more speaking. And then 59% of you are saying both. And so we'll be able to speak to both of those topics today. And the second question about do you have a book in progress? That was about 41% of you have a book in progress. 35% of you are in a collaborative book. I think I'm in one with some of you. And no, but I want to be. That's awesome. So that was 24%. So thank you for doing the poll. That really helps us know who's with us today and what some of your goals are. We've got lots of opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to run through some slides, which will keep me focused on delivering the content that we promised to give you. And then at about 50 minutes, we'll go through a couple of discussion points and talk to you about our upcoming boot camp. And then we're going to go back into questions with a few more tips and strategies to take us on that final part of the 90 minutes. So stick with us. We've got some great content. Gail is recording this, And I think we're just going to dive in because I've got lots to share with you and I really want to hear your questions. So don't wait to the end. Have your questions coming up as we go through. Let's see here. We've got the slides. Now, in terms of let me see here. Sorry. Why can I not get to, there we go. In terms of the slides, these are just really going to help keep me focused on content. We're talking today about how to kickstart a profitable 2024. And in the green room chatterbox before we went on live, there was some conversations of people are starting to plan now, and now is actually the time to be planning. We want to be planning now, not January 21st or January 1st. We're going to be talking about 3 ways to find speaking engagements. I'm going to talk about some trends as well, which will impact how we find speaking engagements. Some of these may not be strategies you've been using yet, or you know about them and haven't been utilizing. We'll talk about 3 ways to use powerful images. I'm really excited around how images are advancing my speaking business. I'll give you some examples of that. And we'll talk about how these images that you share on social media can actually get you in front of people who book speakers, whether they're event planners, conference organizers, meeting planners, or clients and associations. We'll talk about some of the things I think you should be doing on LinkedIn if you're not already. And Tracy, who is on today, is our social media goddess. So I could listen to Tracy talk about social media all day long. I've learned so much from her. And if you know, watch Tracy's social media because you get to see how she navigates all the different platforms. So that's one of the things I do. That's a tip I do. I love following people who are doing what I want to be doing. And then one of the other appealing parts, I think, for a lot of us is around how to get booked for International Women's Day. It happens every March. Every March we have International Women's Day, and it's a great opportunity for all of us to be speaking. It's also, for those of you that are authors, it's a great opportunity for you to be selling books and even selling books in bulk. So let's just take a little bit of this is a bit of a chat exercise. I'm curious, when you look at your calendar for 2024, how's it looking right now? So in the chat box, if you want to share, how's it looking? Is it still, you know, you've got some wide open dates, you're just starting to do planning now, you're starting to explore speaking engagements, some engagements are coming in. So feel free to type in the chat. I see some people saying sad, it's looking sad. That's okay. We're going to give you some tips that we can turn the sad face to a happy face. A couple of engagements, but wanting to book plenty of room for more. Blank schedule, lacking, empty, wide open. A few lined up, but would love to have more. Lots of room for engagements. First half of 24 planned, looking to also launch a podcast in Q1. Awesome. Wide open, starting the year off with a wellness show in February. Fabulous, Charlene. And then open to cool opportunities, just starting to get booked. Excellent. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing where we're at. And in 2024 is interesting because a lot of us are being impacted by some of the trends that are happening right now. So let me share a couple of trends. And then in the chat box, if you are seeing trends in the speaking world, feel free to add those in the chat box because I think this will be a really great little tip sheet for us after today's class. So some of the trends that we're seeing, and I'm certainly seeing this in my speaking. I have a couple of speaking bureaus that book work for me. And one of them I've been with for, gosh, probably close to 10 years. And out of every year I've done work for the bureau, 2023 and booking into 2024 has been probably my busiest year and the shortest lead notice. I was just saying to Gail just before before we went live today that I had a couple of requests come in from one of the bureaus for 3 weeks from now and a month from now. So one of the trends, and we're seeing this if you follow speaking industry trends, and Lois Kremer is a fabulous speaker who also produces on her blog a lot of the trends reports that are happening in the event world and the speaking world. So she's also a great one to follow. But Lois, one of the reports that she shared actually echoed that speaking right now is a lot shorter notice speaking engagements, whereas years ago we'd be planning like a year and a half, even 2 years. And a lot of the events that are happening now are shorter notice. There's also a lot of cancellations or rebookings. I had 4 engagements booked and the client with one client, and it was for 2023 and the end of 23, and they've moved them all now to the end of 24. So there, part of it is just this uncertain or unknown kind of landscape that we're all living in right now. And so there's a lot more tentative bookings, holds on your calendar that may not be paid by a deposit. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing as speakers. The other interesting thing, and so this is going to really give you some food for thought. One of the trends in the speaking industry is also that hybrid is in. A lot of the speaking industry sector reports are saying that event planners, meeting planners, conference planners, even corporate event organizers are saying that they're looking at hybrid events. So not everyone is comfortable coming back to live events right now. And so as you're talking to event planners who might be interested in your topics for their event, make sure that you're telling them if you are able to present in person and virtual or in a hybrid, let them know that. That's really important information to know. I'm also suggesting, and I did this, I believe, on my e-speakers, is I put that in my bio that my programs can be delivered in person, virtually, or a combination thereof through a hybrid setup. So that's what, so hybrid is not going away. A lot of companies are also looking at virtual only. And I'm seeing this. I just did 4 government contracts in about the last 8 months. All of them were virtual, but they're also, I'm finding that they expect a much lower fee for virtual. So these are interesting conversations that we get into as speakers. That doesn't mean that that's across sectors. It may just be the sector I speak in, but it's something I've been noticing. But here's a really important one, and this is where we can sell more of our services. Everyone I have talked to that books speakers, plans training sessions for their companies or government department, they have all said this: we're done with the one and done. We're done with the one and done. They're looking for ways to keep employees, to keep audiences engaged with the content. So one of the things that I've been very successful with for a number of years is when I do a quote for a speaking engagement, I have my fee and then I have sort of a VIP package that includes what I call booster sessions, which is 2 to 4 opportunities where I can meet with their group again to do Q&A, continue delivering content. And that way they see the training or that speaking engagement as not necessarily a one and done. Now, little caveat here. For conferences where people are showing up at an event for 2 days and going home, they might not be looking at continued training, but you can do that as part of the features that you put in your proposal for speaking. You can say one of the things that my fees include is an opportunity to come back 30 to 60 days after your conference and ask me questions on a live open office hours call or a booster session or whatever you want to call it. And that might help you stand apart. So the one and done is done. So think about ways to support event planners in continuing to have your information hit audiences. What else did I want to say? Oh, a couple of other things. I just launched my own survey to my corporate client groups, which are human people who hire me to speak, are often working in human resources, safety, people and culture, DEI. That's kind of the realm of people that often reach out to me for speaking when they're approaching me as the client group. And so I've done a survey, my own survey, a survey monkey, to test out what topics are they looking for? How do they want programs delivered? Is it important for people to get a certificate of participation or a certificate of attendance? This is really interesting because when I listed out all the topics that I was looking at hosting through my public enrollment sessions that I do in my speaking business, I had a number of people who filled out the survey and said, hey, when you schedule those, we'd like to register people. So if you've never done a survey for your client audience, we've also done this for my other business, Raise a Dream, which is the company that I'm with and partners with WSA a lot on different projects. And that audience is very different. That audience is speakers, authors, coaches, it's all of you. And so we launched a survey to our Raise a Dream community with some similar questions. What are people looking for? And this has been really powerful. So I'd love for you to consider, could a survey help you? So I just want to pause for a second because I see some maybe questions and comments in the chat. So I'm just going to look. The 3 top publishers to pitch our books. I don't know who that would be, but I would say talk to Gail. Talk to Gail at WSA Publishing would be my first recommendation. And that is Gail Watson, who's here with us today. There was another question around speakers bureaus. What speakers bureau do you use, and when in your career do you recommend using them? So working with speakers bureaus, often you have to be invited to be represented by a speaking bureau. I deal with a couple in Canada, and those were by invite. Sometimes speakers bureaus, you can pitch to them to be considered. Recognize that speakers bureaus take a percentage of your fee, which I have no problem with because I didn't have to work hard to get the work, and they bring me new clients. So one of the things you need to know in working with speakers bureaus is that you have to have delivered quite a number of presentations. They are working with their own clients who are looking for speakers. So they want to have speakers that are very experienced, have a lot of testimonials, have presented in a wide variety of scenarios and types of conferences. They're going to want to see a speaker reel, or a sizzle reel. They'll want to see a speaker one sheet. So there's a lot of things that you would want to do to be prepared to work with a bureau. Recognize that many bureaus are representing 300 or 400 speakers. So you might only get 1 or 2 contracts in a year. So this is not the solution to getting booked. This is almost like it's great when you get booked, but it isn't the solution. 90% of the speaking I get is from my own efforts. I'm just going to say that again. 90% of the speaking that I get is from my own efforts, my own marketing. Right now, do I do in-person and virtual? However, not hybrid. Do you have any recommendations and resources to use in order to provide an interactive hybrid experience? Yes, a couple of tips on that before we dive in. Verse yourself on all the platforms. So I know most of us are really comfortable with Zoom, and Zoom has lots of interactive features like polls and breakout rooms and chat opportunities in the chat box. There's different activities that you can do. I use one called Jamboard, which is through Google Suite. You want to make sure when you're speaking, any platforms that you use, you are well versed in, because there is nothing worse than being paid for a speaking engagement and the tech issues are not a tech issue, it's a speaker issue. The speaker doesn't know how to run the platform, and it'll probably impact you getting booked. So make sure, I do a lot of work on Teams. I do a lot of work on Google Meet. I've done, more Zooms than I can imagine. I've worked on all kinds of different conference apps. So you want to make sure that you are versed in the platform and that you know what the features are in each of those different platforms. But there's ways that you can do interaction, like we have, asking questions, getting you to respond, sharing your perspective. All of that is considered interaction as well. Now, let me move the slides forward for a minute. I'm going to come back and keep checking questions. These are fabulous questions. How do you currently find your speaking opportunities? So let's put in the chat box, where are you finding opportunities, and where are you finding the opportunities that you get booked? If you want to put that in the chat box, how are you currently finding your speaking opportunities? So network and SHRM, which is a human resources group. Okay. Where else are people finding speaking? Word of mouth, absolutely. CPHR, yes, I'm actually speaking for them next week in Manitoba. CPHR. Word of mouth, you can't even imagine how powerful word of mouth is. Word of mouth. I'm actually seeing a few of you. Referrals, getting booked through the mentoring that you do in programs, fabulous. And return client groups, yes. I do a lot of work for government, and I love when I can work with the same government. I've worked with 80 municipalities now, and I love it because I might work with the public works department, and then I might do a training for all their leaders in the whole organization, like I'm doing for one tomorrow. And then I might do another project for the community services department. So when you have clients that have multiple departments, this is really, really rich for each of you. So this is important to look at, to keep track of what you're doing to find opportunities, and are they working for you? Keep doing them. And if they're not, it might be a matter of tweak it or drop it, because we can spend time doing outreach that isn't working. I get a lot of speaking off LinkedIn, a lot of speaking off LinkedIn. In fact, many of them have not been to my website. It comes directly from LinkedIn. And I spend probably half an hour minimum a day just nurturing LinkedIn. So here's a little tip for you. How many of you have been speaking at an event or a conference that has an app? There's an app attached to the conference, like the conference app. Give me a heck yes in the chat box if you've seen those. I'm speaking at one next week, and they use an app called, what is it called? Feed Loop. And the great thing is, it lists all the attendees. So what did I do this weekend? Reached out to, I don't know, 180 HR attendees who are going to this conference. They're all in my potential target audience. One by one in LinkedIn, I went and found them, found their profile, connected with them. And what was fabulous is many of them said, "Oh my gosh, this is great. I haven't even looked at the agenda yet. I'm going to be taking in your session." So now they're getting access to my feed. I'm now connected to them so that I can promote myself to them later. Some of them are coming to my conference session that I'm doing because it's a breakout. So there's several people at the same time. Conference app. Oh yeah, Hoova is a good one too. I've seen some of the folks, Brella, Hoova. Those are apps that a lot of conferences will use to have virtual opportunities to meet one another. Sometimes they do prizing, sometimes they have virtual booths. Make sure if you are at a conference speaking, you access every possibility like that. You set up that profile, you start engaging and meeting people. That's how I get booked. I get a lot of speaking just through that. And then now on LinkedIn, that I'm connected with these 100 and some odd HR folks from this conference next week, I can continue to stay in touch with them. Speaking is really a relationship business. A lot of your speaking will come from the relationships you build. All right, let's talk marketing for a minute before we get deep into strategies. What kind of marketing are you doing that is resulting in bookings for you? What kind of marketing are you doing? If you want to put that in the chat box. What kind of marketing are you doing that is working for you? Meaning it's getting you booked, or at least getting you on the call. It's getting you inquiries. And I'll hear from, I'm just making a couple notes of what I want to share with you on this one. Okay, let's see what kind of marketing people have got. Publishing a weekly newsletter. Oh, I love that, Linda. And guest podcasting, fantastic. And I see Lee put up the link for podcast guests as well in the chat. So podcasting can be great. I find that I never get booked from a podcast, but it builds great awareness. Anyone else that's doing anything to promote their speaking, please put it in the chat box. And as you think about them, you can still add that later. A couple things that I'm doing that are working in terms of marketing is I have a LinkedIn newsletter. And Tracy knows how much I love LinkedIn newsletters. They're my happy place. LinkedIn newsletters are fantastic, but you've got to be consistent, which is where I have sometimes fallen down. I will just pull back the curtain and be painfully honest here. But LinkedIn newsletters get me in front of my perfect audience that are not in my database. So it gives me a way to stand out on LinkedIn. When you do a LinkedIn newsletter, it sends the newsletter by email to everyone who is subscribed. So I love LinkedIn newsletter because the people that are booking me to speak, especially for the corporate work I do, they use LinkedIn. They're not on Facebook for business. They're not on Instagram for business. They're using LinkedIn. The other features on LinkedIn is I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn audio. I love it because you don't have to get all beautified up. It's audio only. You're not on camera. But LinkedIn go, says Charmaine Hammond is going live, and all these people that I'm even not even connected to on LinkedIn start showing up. And then they've reached out to me later. Can you send me your speaking information? So LinkedIn audio has been really helpful. And here's why. The best way to get booked to speak is to speak. Let me say that again. The best way to get booked to speak is to let people hear you speaking. That's my number one marketing strategy. Really, really powerful. Another comment in the chat box: network program sponsorships, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Awesome. Thank you, Cynthia, for that. Now let's dive into some strategies on finding speaking engagements. Here's a few of the ways that I find speaking engagements. And I have kind of systems that I use. I block off, I time block. I time block time for me to work the system, so to speak. The number one thing I do is I have set up call for speakers. And basically, calls for speakers are Google alerts. I've set them up for things like call for speakers, HR conferences, Canada, call for speakers, leadership conferences, North America, call for speakers 2024 conflict resolution. That's one of my topics. And what Google does is it sends me an email through the Google alert. Hey, there's this conference opportunity in wherever, San Diego. And it allows me now 50% of what I get through Google alerts is not helpful. It's delete, 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 delete. The other 50% is often great conferences that I can send in a pitch or a proposal for. So Google alerts is great. Good old fashioned Google searching. I find a lot of conferences in Google search. I have a tracker that when I'm on social media and I see colleagues presenting at different events, if it's an event that might be suitable for me, I chart it. In LinkedIn, a lot of times the speaker will say thank you, and they'll tag all the people on the planning committee for bringing me in to speak at this event for, and they'll say the company name. So I pay attention to that and I chart down some of those names so that I could reach out 3 or 4 months after their conference, maximum 3 months preferably, because they've already started planning for next year. So Google, LinkedIn, and Facebook, you can do a call for speakers. You can go into LinkedIn, into the search bar, and type in call for speakers 2024, and it will bring up any posts where people are saying, hey, we're hosting a conference in 2024. We've got a call for speakers out. So this is part of the strategy that I time block to do every week. Google, search it for calls for speakers in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and Google search. And of course, set up your call for speakers as a Google alert. So that's one strategy. Strategy number 2, building relationships and active outreach. This is important. And I should actually add something: building relationships and active outreach, and yellow highlighter, following up, following up quickly. So building relationships is key. When you build relationships with event planners, people who book speakers in the sectors that you speak to, those relationships will carry you. I had a really interesting conversation years ago with an event planner that I really respect. She books, I don't even know how many conference speakers a year. She has some really, really big conference clients. So she's booking, 10, 15, 20 speakers for each event. And maybe she does 10 events in a year. So one of the things that she said is that I'll word this to my memory. This is not her exact quote, but basically she said, Charmaine, when our event is over, like, we've moved on to the next thing. So for speakers to stand out, they've got to be in touch with us because we've moved on. It was a great event, and we move on to the next one. And then we go into this process of got to find my speakers, got to find my speakers. If you're in touch with me and you stay in touch and we communicate and you check in with me, there's a really good likelihood that when I'm looking for speakers for my next conference, they might say, I should call that person again. Audience really liked her or him. So this is really important. Build the relationships, and the genre or the sectors that you speak in front of will have different titles. For example, in the corporate world, if that's the space you speak in, you're probably dealing with event planners, conference organizers, professional event planners, learning and development folks within a company. And if you're in the entrepreneur space, you might also be dealing with those titles, but you also might be dealing with association like chairs or board members for associations. And make sure that you are keeping track of the people who contract your services. Keep this on a chart. When I applied to have my CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, which is a really tough designation to get, you have to go through 10 years, I think it was, of all of your speaking engagements. Thank goodness some of these I had tracked. Bad on me for not having the first 4 or 5 tracked. I had them in my invoice file, I had them in my client files, but I didn't have all the names and the topic and how many hours and what the fee was and how it was delivered and what the program was called on one chart. I started doing that when I knew that I would be required to do that to apply for my CSP. If I can offer you a great learning from that, have a chart just like that. The client name, the date, how many people attended, who the person was that you were contracted by, what their email and phone number is, how many people showed up, what resources you gave them, what the topic was. That will be your gold mine, because you can go back to that list every year and reconnect with those people. So much of my work comes from repeat clients. That is so much easier than finding new clients all the time. Now, when we talk about outreach, this can also include that outreach where you're approaching events that are coming up. And I do this all the time. Just did this actually a couple of weeks ago. There was a conference coming up in Toronto, so not too far from where I live. They obviously had their speakers booked. The registrations were closed. So, I mean, it was right around the corner, but this is a conference I would love to speak at. What I did is I reached out to the event organizer and said, I know you've probably got all your speakers lined up. I just wanted to introduce myself in the event that a speaker couldn't show up. There were some travel issues. You needed another speaker to step in. I'm happy to be that person for you. I am available on the 2 days of your conference. I can send you my information if that is helpful. If not, I'd love to arrange a call after your conference is done. And they really appreciated that. Really appreciated that. After the calls, they immediately connected with me on LinkedIn as well. So I thought this is good. That's a good type of outreach. Platforms like 10 times, 10times.com, this lists events around the world. You can go on there and look at events that are happening close to home or close to where you're traveling for a speaking engagement or even holidays, and reach out to those organizers. And then you can do things like wraparound events. I do this. This is my strategy. I try and do as much as possible. If I'm traveling somewhere to speak, like next week I'm in Manitoba speaking, what I started doing was reaching out to clients that I knew in the area and clients I would love to work for, letting them know I'm going to be in town for 3 days. Is there an opportunity that we could meet, or I could do a presentation for your team while I'm there? So these take time, though. They take time and effort. And a lot of speakers and authors don't use these strategies because it isn't necessarily the quick win. But what I find is that is what's built my speaking business. So it may not be an immediate result, but it's all of these pieces together. It's like a big puzzle, and you're putting each piece in, and all of a sudden that puzzle, which is your calendar, begins to get full with the right people. So a couple more slides, I'm going to go into questions again. The most important strategy, I think, to get booked for 2024 and beyond is to speak. Let people hear you speak. Let people hear you share your genius, because when they don't know you and haven't heard you speak, You are a headshot and a bio on a piece of paper. They don't know what you're going to deliver and how you're going to deliver that to their audience. They don't know what kind of experience you're going to give their audience. So speak. You can do this like I do through LinkedIn audios, LinkedIn lives, Facebook lives. I use Facebook lives a lot for my Raise a Dream audience. I use LinkedIn audio for my corporate audiences, webinars for trade associations and groups. Speak. Look for opportunities to speak. This is really powerful. If you're a speaker that has a book, speak for service clubs. They don't pay, but they often will purchase large quantities of your books. And our clients have done this time and time again, and so have I. And then another tip here is images. All right, I love these images because meeting planners notice them, conference organizers notice them, staff event coordinators in government, corporations, associations, nonprofits, they notice them. And here's what the ones that I've used that have really got traction. So here's one example on the screen. This is one that had to do with where I'm going to be speaking in September, October, November, and December. And then I update that. And that I use primarily on LinkedIn, a little bit on Facebook. I think I also did this on Instagram and Twitter. But these are, and I created this myself, ladies. I created this myself in Canva. I know that Stacy on my team could make it look way bigger, but I needed something quickly because I was starting, these events had just been confirmed and I wanted to start booking wraparound events in each of these areas as I was traveling to them. So that's one example of a graphic. Another example of a graphic that's getting me a lot of traction is something like this. I started circulating this as soon as the conference had their event listed on social media and on their website. And I've had people reach out. I've had people message me in LinkedIn saying, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to take this workshop. People have seen this post and come on to a LinkedIn audio that I did. And I just keep circulating this. And the other cool thing is I had 2 clients I would love to speak for comment on this and then share within their audiences. So it's something that I'm seeing traction. This is going to be a definite keep doing for me in 2024 and beyond. And the third one is I'm speaking at this event and also exhibiting at this event. I have a trade show booth there. And last year when I was there, it was phenomenal for me. It was really a game changer for my business. And so I'm doing a booth there again this year. And this image has garnered a lot of traction from companies that I really want to do work for that have multiple departments and locations around the world and definitely within Canada and North America. So these are 3 examples of images that you can create and share on social. You can share them, with podcast interviews. If you've got a podcast interview coming up, you could do something like listen to me on such and such a date and an image just like I had for the speaking. You can use it for speaking engagements, media, events you're attending. What else? Let me put this question back to all of you. How else could you use these types of images to promote speaking to help get you booked? Where else could you use them? I'd love to hear from you all. Yeah, Dominique, I'm seeing your comment in chat. I love LinkedIn audio. This, I think it was the second or third one I did. I had something like 238 people show up, and maybe a fifth of them were people that I was a first or second degree connection with. Most of them were not. So it really got me in front of new people, which was awesome. Okay. Excellent. I just did that and ended up on a planning committee to present as a result of that group. Fantastic. I love this. On the website, you can use these images, blogs, social media, send to other clients. Ooh, that's juicy. Thank you, Linda. Absolutely. And send it directly to people by email. Fantastic. You can do this if you're an author too, right? Come and see me at Chapters. Come and see me at Barnes and Noble. These kind of images just really speak to you as a speaker, and if you're an author, as an author as well. Email signature, great idea. Who was that said that? Karen, fabulous idea. This is genius. I hope you're all taking notes. These are great strategies. And then leveraging LinkedIn, a couple of things. What was I going to say about LinkedIn? Oh, LinkedIn event pages. I know Tracy's just a real genius at this. And WSA is a really good example of using LinkedIn event pages. They have done this for a lot of their events. LinkedIn event pages, again, are a great way to market yourself, whether you're doing a LinkedIn audio or a speaking event, a webinar, you're speaking on a virtual program, you're hosting your own program, like your own webinar. This can be a powerful way, again, to get in front of your audience. Testimonials. And I'm really stressing LinkedIn here simply because event organizers and conference organizers are not likely to go find you on Facebook first or Instagram. They're more likely to go find you on LinkedIn. So make sure that you have testimonials. I think it's 154 testimonials now, written testimonials on LinkedIn. And feel free to go on my page and connect with me. Connect with me. Tell me that you were on today's class, and I will definitely accept your connection request. Follow what I do on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on my profile. And one of the recent event planners that booked me, she said, Charmaine, I have never met someone yet that we have had speak at our event that had 154 testimonials. So it was worth the time in doing that. LinkedIn audio and live, we've talked about. LinkedIn event pages, we talked about. LinkedIn articles, another great way for you to share information and content so people get to know you, get to know what you talk about. Now, LinkedIn articles are not just a normal post. When you're going into a post, it will say to you underneath the place where you write in the post what kind of post you want to do, a post or an article. You can click an article. I also have started LinkedIn newsletters, which I love. I am not consistent at them, and that is my goal for 2024, is to become consistent at them. I use every section of LinkedIn that I can. I know a question that you're going to ask me right now is, Charmaine, do you use the free version or do you use the paid? How many of you were wondering that question? Tell me, oh yeah, in the chat box if you wanted to know if I use LinkedIn free or paid. Right now, I'm using the paid version because it is well worth my time and money, because I've been on a active recruiting for speaking and also for sponsorship for some of the projects I'm working on. But I often then end my premier, I think that's what you call it, premier subscription, and then go on the free again. But I have found it worth the $85, I think it is, for me to be on the premier. I probably will not go off it just because I am getting booked. I just got a very lucrative contract yesterday that came through, not for speaking, actually for consulting and program design, designing training materials. And that came from LinkedIn. So you really want to look at how you're using LinkedIn and use every feature. Like, are you using this feature? Right here, when you have your bio, you actually can access a little button that can say, visit my website. I have book Charmaine to speak. And what I'll do is maybe send instructions on how to do that, so that you, if you don't know where to find this, I will send instructions with the follow-up notes for you all for that. But this is like really easy for people to connect with you just by clicking a little button. And before we go into questions and talking about what's coming up next, a couple of more tips. Make sure you've got a speaker one sheet. Make sure you use a feedback form or a platform like Talkadot, which is an electronic version of a feedback form that you put up a QR code and it takes you. Talkadot is free. I'm using the free subscription for that. But I also have a feedback form. Happy to share it with anyone who wants it. Just tell me in LinkedIn when you message me, just say, send me the feedback form. It's a feedback form I've used for almost 25 years. We've tested the wording and we've got the wording down. The last 10 years now, I haven't changed the wording because my feedback form gets me booked. I would say 20% of my speaking comes from my feedback form. 20% of my speaking comes from my feedback form. Chart everyone you talk to, do quarterly promotions. We've started doing that last year, and that landed me I did a quarterly promotion just saying what's coming up over the next 6 months in our company, and it landed me with 2 speaking engagements. We have to find ways to keep in touch with our clients and potential clients. This is an example of my speaker one sheet. This is 2 pages. They're top and bottom. So I probably should have put them side by side, but this is an example of my speaker one sheet. It's a double-sided PDF. When I print it out, it's a double-sided piece of paper. The top is one side, the bottom under that black bar is the second side. So you can see what I've got on there, some of my credentials, my accolades, a few comments from clients, a little bit of a bio, some of the topics I speak on, and how to connect with me, how to book me to speak at your event. Also, some of the media that I've been on. So that's one example. This is another example. You'll notice these look very different. That was for Raise a Dream. This is for the corporate work I do. So this is some of the work I do around conflict resolution. And here you'll see there's a lot less information. I was just promoting 3 specific speaking topics at a particular conference. With this one, I used different testimonials. I used the head of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for this one versus the testimonials I did for the Raise a Dream speaker one sheet were different. So I'm going to answer a couple questions, and I want to talk to you about boot camp that's coming up in November. Let me go through the questions. I love a copy of your feedback form. Perfect. The question was, were they free or paid? If it was the examples that I was sharing where I was booked for 2 and booked for speaking engagements from my feedback form, those are all paid engagements. When I do, here's a little tip I'll give you all. When I do no fee, I never use the word free, and I don't use the word gig. Get rid of gig in your vocabulary. Nobody hires speakers for a gig. So as a speaker, I call that a speaking engagement, a speaking appearance. I don't use the word gig because event planners are not hiring you for a gig. They're hiring you for a speaking engagement. So use that language. And when you're speaking for no fee, when you're speaking for no fee, I use these as marketing opportunities. So I do speak for no fee occasionally. And when I do, there's a very strategic reason for that. So I use the word no fee. And there are times where I've actually provided a sliding scale for my speaking, for example, with some of the work I do with associations or a nonprofit. So I hope, Marcia, that I answered your question. I didn't notice where your question came in and what I was talking about at that specific moment. So let me know if I completely missed the gap. And if you're multitasking now, stay with me, come back to us here. Excellent. Cynthia is using LinkedIn articles already. Way to go. And you're promoting your speaking and coaching business through that. Fabulous. And thanks, Linda, for your comments on the graphics. I'm really happy with the results those are generating. Okay. I want to talk to, oh yes, feedback form. Okay, I'll make sure I get that out to folks. Oh, good. Thank you, WSA, for the comment here. You all have your speaker profile. Yes, and Gail, after we talk about boot camp, you might want to spend a few minutes on this because this is a really important piece. Let's see here, feedback form. Okay, yes, we will get that to you. So, and feel free to jump in here, Gail, as we talk about boot camp. As you can see, I'm really passionate about this topic because I want to see your calendar full. I want to see your message getting out there in the world in 2024. There are lots of opportunities, and the great news is that events are happening again, in person, virtual, hybrid, combination thereof. The opportunities are there. It was a tough time during COVID for speakers. The opportunities are there. They're emerging. Businesses and organizations are looking for ways to bring people together. They're looking for ways to create connection. And speaking events is one way to do that. So Gail and I are actually putting together a boot camp. We love doing boot camps. We have done boot camps for authors and speakers in past, and this one is going to be a deep, deep dive on how to get booked for 2024, how to actually put these strategies that I kind of presented to you at a high level. We're going to get into the meats and potatoes. Actually, we're going to do work. It's a get it done kind of boot camp. So we're going to be doing some of the strategies right there when you're on the boot camp. It's on November 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And Gail, I know I'm going to mess up the times here. I know it means that in Australia, it's actually the next day. It's the 16th. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And with the time change, it's 9 a.m. Okay, so a really sweet time.
Okay, perfect. So we can get on all kinds of locations here. And it's going to be, pretty much half a day, a 3 hour, a little bit more than 3 hour session. We're going to also have a key focus on March 8th, International Women's Day. We talked about a lot of strategies today you can apply to this, but November 15th is a great time. You're reaching out several months before. I'm going to talk to you and we're going to show you on screen how to reach out. We're actually going to do an exercise where you're going to go into LinkedIn on the computer while you're in boot camp. You're going to go find 5 or 6 event planners, and you're going to use a script that I'm going to type out, put it in the chat box for you. You're going to copy and paste all those scripts because I'm going to give you my scripts. You're going to reach out. What was really cool is you'll probably start hearing back from some of those people, because the first way that to communicate with event organizers is you actually have to get connected to them. And most of them are not reading email. LinkedIn is what they don't feel spammed, is why they're using LinkedIn. So you're actually going to start reaching out right there, putting the strategies into place. And some of the things we're going to do in the deep dive is we're going to go through those proven strategies, the strategies that I use that we know work around getting booked for International Women's Day. If you have a book, if you were in Voices of the 21st Century, that is a great day for you to be speaking. It's a great day for all of us to be speaking. Companies look for observances. International Women's Day is just one example of many of them. We're going to teach you the strategy that you're going to use year after year after year. So you just kind of systematize it and it becomes easily and not as much effort. So in the 3 hours that we're going to have together in boot camp, we're going to teach you about this strategy with observances. We're going to use the March 8th as the working example. And we're actually going to start working on our scripts, our phone scripts, our outreach to get booked for March 8th. We're going to create that plan, the strategy with you, and you'll be starting to work on that. We'll be having breakout rooms because you've seen the amazing ideas that are coming up in chat box as you're sharing what you're doing and what you're working on, how you get booked, what marketing. We're going to have breakout times for you to connect with one another and build relationships with each other, and also to kind of brainstorm together, to get feedback on your ideas. You'll be doing your phone scripts, as I mentioned, and you're going to be able to use these over and over again for so many things. And then we're also going to be looking at writing your press release. So we're going to give you a couple of templates and you'll pick one, and then we're going to write your press release. You're going to write your press release, at least in draft. You're going to look at 3 other observances that are a fit for your speaking events. So for example, your audience might be in the pet industry. So your observances and speaking engagements might look different than someone who speaks in the safety industry or the author world or the branding world. So you're going to look at the observances that fit with your brand and your topics. And then we're going to also run through some very specific actions and steps that you'll be taking over 5 months to build momentum and traction, and setting these tools and systems in place. We're going to walk you through how to set up your Google Alerts. So on the boot camp, your Google Alerts will be set up and you'll start receiving alerts. So we really want to use this as a learning and doing boot camp. And the best part, I personally think, and that's why it's highlighted, is Charmaine and Gail. I am and Gail are co-leading this program. So it's going to be fun. Right, Gail? It's going to be fun. It's going to
Absolutely.
be a hoot. So, Gail, was there anything that I missed on kind of what we're doing on boot camp in November?
No, it's jam-packed.
It
A
is.
lot
It's
of,
going to be
yeah.
a working session. Yeah. And we've done that before, and it works well. So your registration, I'll go through the pricing in a second. Your registration gives you that 3-hour live online. We will have a break, not to worry. There'll be a coffee break or whatever in between. You'll get the video recording. We are going to record this. We are going to get it transcribed because we know that some of you are going to want to look at the text afterwards, not just the video or the audio. There'll be an opportunity to ask your questions in real time. So this is going to be set up as a Zoom meeting so that we can interact. You'll see each other on the screen. It won't be webinar format like today. There's going to be a fillable workbook that you'll have as well so that you can start doing that work right on the call. So it really comes with some juicy things. And the best part, I think, is that if you are a member, it's $97. So we've really set that price to be helpful and make this a no-brainer for you. We really want you to get booked a lot for 2024. If you're a non-member, it's $197. So we really hope that you will join us for boot camp because we know that these kind of sessions, these get it done, being in connection and community are the ways that people actually will put a plan into place and stick with the plan. We don't want you to have activities that are a one and done. You try it once and then forget about it and move on and spend all this time creating wheels that have been created for you. And we want to have fun because I have a little saying, if it's not at my office, if it's not fun, it does not get done. I'm just speaking for myself. But you can look at my desk and see the to-do list. The items that remain on the to-do list are all the items that are not fun for me. The things that get checked off are like the things that I love to do. So we'll talk about how to handle the things that are not fun. So any questions on the boot camp? And then I'm going to go into a little bit more content and a little bit more answering of questions. And Gail, I see you put the boot camp link in there. Did you?
Yes, and if you click on that link, you will see that there's a coupon code that if
Great.
you're a premier member with Women Speakers Association, feel free to just type in that coupon code. It'll take off that $100 and it's only 97 for the full 3 hours and a lot of stuff. Actually, I was going, I actually didn't realize there was some items in there. So you've added to it since we last spoke. So wow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
going to
The
be a
Google
great time.
alerts and the press release, and we're going to add
Yeah,
those in. And yeah, and then
love that.
yeah, because I think we look at what people struggle with, right? We've talked a
Yeah.
lot about that, Gail, over the years. Like, where do people lose momentum? Where do authors and where do speakers lose momentum? And when does it start to feel like really hard work, which means it doesn't get done? And that's why we started to look at let's create this program where people are working on it instead of walking away with a massive to-do list.
Yeah, I like that. That we
Yeah,
can actually do it. Okay, so let's hit up some questions. Feel free to
perfect.
put in the chat. I mean, if you've been like me, I literally have 3 pages of notes. I've been writing down some of your quotes, um, just what to do as an action list. So any questions,
And
let's
I
put them in
see, yeah,
chat. And I think we
perfect.
have
And
some
we've
in the
got a few in the
Q&A.
Q&A. I'm just
Yeah, so
there.
if you want to go there. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the questions was, what things do you speak about when you go on your LinkedIn audios? Oh, I love that question. I speak about things that are relevant to what I'm going to talk about if I was on a stage somewhere. If I'm doing a LinkedIn audio related to Raise a Dream, I speak about things like being an author, getting sponsorship to bring your projects to life, um, how to work with collaborative types of projects, how to work with collaborations. So that's the type of, because Raise a Dream is all about helping people raise their dreams through collaboration and sponsorship. That's what I speak about on lives there. For my corporate business, Hammond International, what I'm speaking about are topics that are directly related to my core speaking topics. For example, I did one last week about trauma informed leadership in conflict navigation. I did one about what's the connection between workplace safety and conflict resolution. I did one about what's the connection with burnout and conflict. So that my lives are usually 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And they are speaking about a specific topic that always I am seeding. And this is something, if we have time on the 3rd, I'm just going to make a note on the 15th. I'm sorry. If we have time on the 15th, I think we're going to talk about seeding. Seeding is when you are speaking, for example, on a LinkedIn audio, and you say things like this. When I'm speaking for government organizations, businesses in the oil and gas sector, community groups, and even nonprofits, notice how I've kind of, because I'm looking at who's who in the LinkedIn room, and I'm seeing there's government, there's people from nonprofits, there's people from the oil and gas sector. What I'm doing is seeding that I could speak for their audience. So I'll say things like, when I'm speaking for these audiences and doing training within their companies, one of the things I always remind them is proving someone wrong does not make you right. That's a quote I use in all my conflict tips. Or I might seed saying something like, in some of the speaking engagements that I've done at association conferences. So, what you're doing is you're letting the audience know that you could present on this or something similar to their audience. That's important in seeding. Some of the other things that I talk about when I am on a LinkedIn is I might pull in some kind of a trend in the industry or a change in the industry. So it makes it relevant for people. LinkedIn audio, just so you know, LinkedIn audio does not record. It's not like Zoom. But I've seen people actually go on to Zoom, and that's how they record themselves while they're on the LinkedIn audio, or I just record it with my cell phone actually. And that's the one thing about LinkedIn audio. It's not like Zoom, it doesn't record. And I also invite questions when I do my LinkedIn event page in advance to promote the LinkedIn audio. I ask people for the type of questions they hope that I will answer. So I'm hoping that that answered that question. Another one is, what is your time commitment each week to these strategies? Um, my priority is the top of every day. The things that get done are things that generate revenue, whether that's around selling my books or selling my speaking. It's really easy for us to get into the fun stuff. So, that being said, while I have my first coffee, I do fun stuff. I go and check my social media. I'm scrolling, I'm responding to people, I'm seeing what's going on in the social media world with my clients. I do that. And then I go into the activities that will generate revenue. That's the biggest priority for us when we're in a business, is to be sustainable, to be profitable. And so, for example, tonight, when we're done this webinar, I have 3 proposals to do for speaking. So those are going to happen before I hit checking out social media or doing things. So it's going to vary day to day in terms of how much time I dedicate. Right now, there's 7 conferences that are great for people like myself who speak in the HR and safety world. And these are all ones that I found on social media. And actually, I'm now on some mailing lists. Sometimes event organizers will have a little button on their website that says sign up here to find out about future speaking engagements. So I just got one sent to me for a safety conference in Canada. So, that's probably going to take me about half an hour to fill out that speaker submission, but I do that a lot. And do I get all the speaking engagements? No. This is important. One of the conferences, a safety conference that I was pitching to speak at, they had one of those call for speaker forms. I filled out the form, and I didn't get accepted, got the letter that I didn't get accepted. I was okay with that because this event I would have preferred to be speaking. However, I looked at it that was half of my time, half an hour of my time really well spent, because I got in front of an event organizer who I then was able to set up a call with to talk about what might they be looking at next year for their conference. How could I be sort of on target with my topics to support them in their future event? I would say at minimum, I'm going to say at minimum, I would spend an hour a day at minimum on very strategic marketing and outreach strategies. And, I do that because it works. And it's sort of like with books. If you think about all of you who are authors, when you stop marketing your book stops selling. When we stop marketing our speaking, we don't get booked. So it's got to be something that we're doing regularly. I hope that answered that question. That was a great question. And you know what, Karen, you've kind of got me thinking that it'd be interesting for me to track my time on these activities to see what I am actually spending, because I'm thinking it's an hour, maybe it's an hour and a half, maybe it's more, I'm not sure. The key is consistency though. So many questions. I love that. So many questions with a happy mark, a happy face. What is your method for getting testimonials? So I have a system for that. Here's what I do. As soon as I'm done a speaking engagement, I actually use the feedback form. This is why I want y'all to have my feedback form. I take my feedback form and I do a roll up. Now, if you're going to use Talkadot, the free platform that I mentioned, it does the beautiful report for you with pie charts and graphics. It gives you the responses to each question that you can then give that PDF to the client. And I do the same type of thing. I've been doing it manually for almost 30 years now as a speaker. I take my feedback form and I summarize it into a report, and I set up a call with the organizer to do a debrief. I don't send the PDF to them right away. I say, can we hop on a call? I'd like to present the feedback summary. Then I show them on screen the feedback summary. Generally, my preference is to get them on Zoom. If not, I kind of read off the key findings. And then I say things like on my feedback form, it says, what are the other topics? And it ranks them in order of priority or preference for the people filling out the form. And it's basically asking them, what else would you like to learn about? And of course, they're all topics that I speak on, right? And then in the report and in the conversation, I say to that event organizer, wow, 87% of your staff are looking for how to navigate ugly conflicts or how to deal with emotions and conflict. I wonder if we could have a conversation about how we could put something together for them. That was 87% of your people said this is important to them. That's another way that I land a lot of speaking is through my feedback form. So that's one way that I get testimonials, is because I use this information, and then the client is thinking, wow, like because the feedback forms are always really good. And I have a little box on there. Do you have a testimonial, or would you like to provide feedback that Charmaine can share in her marketing? Most people don't check that. Most of my testimonials come from me reaching out at that presentation conversation with the event planner to go over the feedback form. I say to them, would you be willing to do a testimonial for me on LinkedIn and or on letterhead that I can use, for my marketing? And they might say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you don't get it. So you got to remind them. And then, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm on it. And you got to remind them again. Most people give up after 2. I go that little bit further. And so I just got one recently for someone I spoke for 6 months ago. I think it was quite a while ago. So it's not top of mind for them. So I asked them. The other thing is I have a great little script that I use that I send them by email, thanking them for being a speaker at their event. And part of how I grow my business and help other people, other event organizers, determine if my topics and my presentation style would be a fit for their event is by testimonials of people who have booked me. And would you be willing to give a testimonial on LinkedIn? And if yes, here's the instructions of how to do this. A lot of people don't know how to give a LinkedIn. They don't know where to go. And so I actually have the instructions. You go here, you find the 3 dots, you open that slide up. It says, make a recommendation. When you help people do that, it makes it easier for them to say yes. I do not use that feature in LinkedIn that just is that templated ask for a recommendation. Never use that. I always ask by voice, by voicemail, so the conversation, or by voicemail, or by email with the instructions. That's one of the ways that I do link. So I have so many testimonials on letterhead, so many testimonials through LinkedIn. It works. The strategy works. That's all I'm going to say. Now, what else is coming up in chat box? I was on the Q&A. Let's see here. Thanks, Tracy. Such a nice comment. Yeah, I can't wait for boot camp either. Okay. Did I miss any question? I feel like I've missed a question, and I'm searching rapidly. If I missed your question, could you just copy and paste it into the chat? Oh, LinkedIn newsletters. I found it. There it is, Dominique. Do you suggest working with or updating your old blogs? Oh, it's a great question. I'm going to quote the incredible Tracy, who taught me not to just copy my blogs and posts, that Google and the little, whatever you call them, the critters that run around on the internet. There's a word, Tracy. I have no idea what it is, but I don't know what they're called. Not bot.
Spiders.
Yes, spiders. Thank you. Yes, if Tracy taught me long ago, if you just repurpose your stuff on multiple platforms, that actually hurts you. So, uh, quoting Tracy, you need to change and modify. If you're going to take a blog and use it in your LinkedIn article, and Tracy, chime in if I am messing this step up. But what I learned was that you need to change it. You need to change the title. You need to change some of the content in that first paragraph, and then throughout, swap out different images. It needs to be different. So yes, you can repurpose, but with revisions and with new titles and with some new content. I hope I did your tip justice there, Tracy, but that's a great question, because a lot of times it feels like, oh my gosh, does the content creation ever stop? Like, I feel like all I'm doing is creating content. So you can repurpose, but recognize we need to do a little bit of work on that.
Yeah. And good news, Tracy will be at the boot camp, so I'm sure she can
Yeah,
chime in as
perfect.
uh anybody who wants to
Perfect.
go deeper into that. So
That's
sorry,
excellent.
Tracy, just volunteering you there.
We do that to Tracy a lot, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Still loves
Just
us.
ask
Thank you,
Tracy.
Tracy.
I can
Yeah,
get her a
I know.
t-shirt like that. Just
Yeah, just ask Tracy. I love it. Okay, let's see. Am I missing others? Blah, 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 blah.
you know what? If there's no more questions, what I'd really
Yeah.
love to hear is what's the biggest takeaway from today? Is there a
Mm-hmm.
point of action? If you want to go ahead
Yes.
and share that with us. I know there's uh, some of you that have joined in, and a big welcome to Cynthia, who's a new member of Women Speakers Association. Yay.
Mm.
I'm looking forward to seeing you at the boot camp. But yeah, I would love to hear your big takeaways.
Yeah, it's a
Karen,
great
you
question.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Chart everything.
oh my gosh. If I was told that 30 years ago when I opened the business.
So if you're really wanting, I mean, 2024 comes really quickly, and we have to go through, the holiday season, which just is, this
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity. Just think about it, where you're going to block off 3 hours of your time in your calendar. If it's the only thing you do for the next, I don't know, 60 days, at
Yeah,
least you know in that 3 hours you're actually going to do it. And then it's just done. And we do it together. And I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to do it too.
yeah,
So that we can just get it done. And it's more fun when we're all together. And I know some of the strategies that
totally.
Charmaine uses when we're all writing on those little cards and stuff. And it makes it a lot of fun and we learn so much more.
Yeah. And for those of you that are authors where authors is more of your primary business, speaking is secondary, everything that we're talking about is completely applicable to your book. Whether you have your own book, you're working on a book, whether you're in a collaborative book, whether you're one of our voices of the 21st century book authors, the strategies we're going to go through are completely applicable. There will be a few strategies that will need a bit of a tweak. So what we do in speaking looks like this, what we do as an author looks like this. And I'll go through and flag, like you'll see the tweaks of what you need to do, whether you're promoting your books or you're speaking. Yes. Let me see. Blah, blah, blah. Do these, great question, Marjorie, do these strategies work for mainly virtual or speaking? Virtual speaking businesses, they work for all. I use the same strategies for pitching for virtual events as I do live events, as I do for hybrid. There's going to be a couple of adjustments that you'll make when you're doing virtual speaking, where if that's your focus, if that's your jam, versus in person, there's a few things that you'll be able to do differently. I'm going to highlight some of the things that can help you stand out when you're talking to event hosts about virtual only or in person only or a hybrid. But everything that I've talked about today gets me booked for virtual events, hybrid events, and in-person events. And in-person events are my highest paid fees. Well, the other piece too, I want y'all to be thinking about before boot camp. This is a really important takeaway for all of you before boot camp. If you can give some thought to what are the wraparound services that I can offer to an event organizer. Let's say you just get speak for a book to speak for a virtual women's summit. And it says maybe let's say it's an honorarium. It's really low fee, but you're going to take it because this is a good marketing opportunity. I want you to start thinking about what are the ways that you can talk to the event host that gets you in front of the audience more than once. For example, with the HR conference that I was referencing that I'm speaking at next week, it's a no fee event. It's actually costing me $1,000 to go. I had to book a flight, a hotel for 2 days, do some printing of my marketing material. So I'm actually making an investment of time and money to go, but it's my audience. It's 100% of my audience in that room. It made good sense for me to do this as a marketing exercise because I know that when I speak at that event, I will be booked. That's just what happens. And what I did is I talked to the event host and I said, I noticed that on your website you have a magazine. Will you be having a magazine edition come out before conference in October or no in October? And she said, we do actually. Comes out at the end of September. Awesome. How do I get considered for an article? So I got a 2-page article in that. Have I been sharing that article on LinkedIn? You betcha. And then I said, oh, what about after the conference? What would be the potential of me doing a follow-up article after the conference on a topic that's different than what I spoke about, but highly related? And I presented 3 topics. So we're talking after conference for me to be in a follow-up. That gets me in front of their audience for 6 months. That will help get me booked. So I really want you to start thinking about how can you keep appearing in front of an audience? Can you do a video? Hi, it's Charmaine. I'm so looking forward to speaking at CPHRMB next week. I'm going to be talking about this. And it's a short little video, but Tracy always tells me videos get shared, videos and images get shared. So I just do what Tracy tells me. Do what Tracy tells you. T-shirt number 2. Okay. What kind of fees do people earn for virtual? It's all over the map. It really depends on the audience you speak to, first of all. In the corporate sector that I speak to, those are much higher paying events than in the nonprofit world or in the entrepreneur space. So it's a really hard question to answer because it depends on what space you're speaking in. But I know that some of the virtual events that I've been booked to speak for corporations, for government related clients, for conferences that are for leaderships in big companies, those have been anywhere from, one was $1,200. That's way below my fee, but it was my perfect client. And I was able to negotiate some other, what I call integrity items. So I got in a magazine. I was able to come and do a presentation to their leadership group. And part of it was that they would consider me to speak at their in-person conference the next year at my full fee, which was approved. So that was worth it for me to take that lower fee to then be speaking for my full fee. And then I've been booked a lot recently at $3,500, $4,500 for virtual speaking fees in the corporate space. Does the entrepreneur space command that? Typically not. Very different. Entrepreneurs, or sorry, the nonprofit space, very different. So it's going to depend on your experience. I have 30 years teaching conflict. So that's different than someone just starting out. But I
Yeah.
see even people starting out, I'm seeing people get booked for virtual events from anywhere from $1,000 for a 45-minute to an hour presentation, up to $2,500. So
And
it really depends.
and I was just thinking, just as you said that, you're getting up to 3,500, or you're getting 35, 45, but even if it's 500,
Yeah.
if it's a virtual presentation or something, learning these techniques
Yeah.
just to even get one in a month, like what would $500 a month more help you? Or a $3,500 a month. So it doesn't have to be a
Mhm.
lot to add up when you're looking at the line items of your budget each month of how much more additional revenue you want to bring in. Because after all, you do have your business, you're
Mhm.
serving your clients. So there's only so much time that you
Yeah.
can get out there to speak. So it's
Yeah.
just a nice sort of fun money that you can
Yeah.
have to pull in for yourself.
Yeah. And pricing is really important. And I think maybe what we'll do is for boot camp, I'll put together, we've got some resources on pricing for different types of events, different sectors, and different types of client groups. So, for example, a conference organizer versus someone in training and development in a company versus an association. So, I think what we'll do, Gail, is I'll toss that in for our boot camp attendees as an additional resource. I'm just going to make a note here because pricing is
Wow.
tough.
We
Um,
might need more time.
well, I'm not
Or
going to talk about that a
oh,
lot. I'm going to give it as a
okay,
resource
okay, that's
after.
awesome.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a big question,
it's
and
huge.
that's a big cherry on top, that's for sure.
I remember, here's a little funny story for y'all. I remember when every coach I worked with said I was drastically cutting myself short on my fees. Drastically. And I said, what do you mean by drastically? All three of them, who are all different backgrounds at that time, this was about 7 years ago, told me what my fee should have been. It was half of what I was charging. So my husband worked with me. This is what we did. So I increased my fee, not to what they said. My comfort zone wasn't there. Okay. But I increased it by $2,500 from what it was. So it was a little bit of a stretch for me. And my husband had heard me talking to a client about it. And he said, you need to practice this, Charmaine. Because that was like the most awkward. He says, I listened to you all day long. And he said, you were comfortable at that fee and this new fee. Your discomfort is showing. So he would phone me up. My phone would ring and he'd say, hello, I was wondering what your fee is for a 1.5 hour conflict resolution presentation for a government audience. And then the phone would ring an hour later. Hi, this is so and so. And it's Chris phoning me, getting me to practice and practice. And I recorded myself. And very quickly, what was interesting when I increased my fee, my husband's tip is you just need to be looking at your fees every year and looking at as your experience grows, as your credibility grows, as your training goes, is your fee that you have now the fee that you should be charging? Jane Atkinson is someone that I adore. She does amazing writing on how we should be charging for speakers. And I know Jane, if you were to talk to her, would tell you the majority of speakers are charging significantly less than they should be for their speaking. And there is a problem for all of us with that. When you charge too low, you get overlooked because event planners know the caliber of speaker that they're looking for with a certain type of experience or a certain connection to a certain audience. They know within a range of what is an appropriate fee. And when you come in at way less, they typically overlook you. So pricing is something that's important and we won't have time on boot camp to go through it, but I promise I will put together some really solid resources so that you can look at that and then that you have a plan every year to not necessarily change your fees. I didn't change my fees at all during COVID. Um, like increase them. I mean, I didn't increase them. I actually had to decrease them in some occasions and not much was going on during COVID. But you want to get into that rhythm of looking at your fees and your whole kind of speaking business structure every year.
All right.
Hey, great comment, by the way. I want to shout you out, Linda. Great comment on the virtual fees, what you're seeing ranges. That's right in the ballpark of what I'm seeing too. So read Linda's comment and chat. Really good. Yeah. And Marjorie is saying pricey. Yes. Come to boot camp, Marjorie. I'll be giving that resource out. I've made a note. You love
Yeah.
Chris. I love him too, Tracy. He's awesome. It's the toughest person to take feedback from, right? Your spouse.
That's a good
He's
one.
right.
Well, we've come to time and I
Yes, we
want
have.
to, yeah, and I feel really full. You've shared so much, and I can't imagine what 3 hours. Well, I know what 3 hours is going to be like. It's going to be We're definitely going to be full of great information, and we're going to actually have it planned. So
Hmm.
there's the boot camp link in the chat. Come to the boot camp. This is where all the resources or the actual planning, the scripts, all of that takes
Hmm.
place. So please get signed up for that. And Charmaine, I want to thank everybody for. I hope
Yeah.
you're all feeling excited, and join me in thanking Charmaine for a great time and sharing her resources. Yes, she's a terrific partner for Women Speakers Association. Really believes in women getting their message out, and the consistent comment that or feedback that I always get about Charmaine is she gives you so much, right? So that's one thing I really
Mm.
appreciate about you, Charmaine, and thanks for being a partner to Women Speakers Association and for helping amplify the voice of women out there in this big world because oh boy, do they need us out there.
Yes.
So,
Do
uh,
they need us now more than ever? Now more than
yeah,
ever.
we are looking for some peace, harmony, and what women bring wired, how we are wired, how we can speak, and how we can nurture, and how we can come together more. So,
Exactly.
everybody, thank you, Charmaine. I hope you enjoyed this training today, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. Remember to go
Yeah.
to wsalive.com/events or watch your Monday newsletters for more events. We have networking coming up. We have more trainings coming up. So, and of course, you can always just reach out to us at support if you have any questions. So until next time, wherever you are in this world, I want to wish you a great day and much peace and love to all of you.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, everyone. See you at boot camp.